Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of College Town Talk. I'm Jonathan Frank, and I'm so glad to be joined once again by my co-host Shan Stout. Shan, we missed you during the last few recordings, but you had a very good reason for being away. You were actually guest lecturing at Tennessee Tech. How did that go?
Oh, I always love to go and speak to the students at Tech because I think they don't know how to size me up because I'm kind of a big personality, right? And so they don't know what to expect. And I spoke to the merchandising students, and they had just been tasked to design a new T-shirt for Tennessee Tech. And they also did like a sticker logo and all the different things that would go with that merchandising package. And what they didn't know about me is that with the Visitor Center and the Welcome Center, with the Visitors Bureau, we choose our new T-shirt design for summer based on the best-selling sticker in our shop. So we kind of throw sticker designs out there first and see which one starts selling the most, and then we turn it into a T-shirt. So that's kind of our focus group is the sticker patrol. And they were like, oh my gosh, we did that too. So they accidentally were doing the same thing. You know, like they were like, we thought it would be a good idea to invest a little bit in a sticker and see what other students liked and then decide on the T-shirt design. And they didn't know, but that's pretty much a standard thing when you're doing merchandising. You choose a lesser item and you invest a little and then you see what sticks and then you invest a lot. And that has worked for us for many, many years. So they're so smart, but they are going to participate in a special project, Jonathan, where they are going to compete amongst their peers and design a new Visit Cookeville logo T-shirt.
We'll have to have the winning students on the podcast.
Absolutely. And I mean, it is a tough competition. They are emailing and texting me daily. What do you think about this idea? Am I going too far if I do this? And they are really in it to win it. So I think that the competition is going to be tough. I am thrilled to see the new designs.
Well, that is really cool for the students to be able to hear from you. And we had, I want to say we did have a great stand-in while you were away. Susan Luna Hazelwood joined us on
Don't fire me yet, because I know Susan did a great job.
But we're glad you're back. And we are welcoming you back to the studio with a very exciting guest today. In fact, you might say that we are over the moon that she's here.
Oh, no, here comes the puns.
And in many ways, she has eclipsed most of our other recent guests.
How much time did you spend on these?
Houston, we have a podcast.
You know this is only a half-hour show, right?
Okay. I do want to say I made myself laugh out loud when I was writing each of those.
I'm sure you did. At least someone was laughing.
But today's guest is Dr. Jeannette Luna, the Assistant Dean of Research and Graduate Studies in the College of Arts and Sciences at Tennessee Tech. She's also an associate professor of earth sciences and served as the faculty representative on Tech's Board of Trustees from 2023 to 2025. But Dr. Luna's world changed in a big way earlier this year when she got a call from NASA inviting her to be one of only 10 scientists on the agency's Artemis lunar surface science team focusing on geology activities. The highly selective group of researchers will support NASA's upcoming crewed mission to land astronauts near the moon's south pole, thus my puns. And her new role with NASA has landed her on evening news broadcasts, newspapers, and radio programs all over Tennessee, from Memphis to the Tri-Cities. And we are so happy that today she's here with us in the studio. Dr. Luna, welcome to College Town Talk.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really honored.
Well, we're really honored. This is a big deal for us. And we were talking actually before you arrived. I mean, you've been all over the news these last few weeks. We know you have a lot of demands on your schedule. And of course, in the communications and marketing office, we sort of track all of that's coming in. And I'm going to make a very bold statement, which is that I don't think a singular person since one Barry Butch Wilmore has brought so much exposure and visibility to Tennessee Tech because you have been everywhere. But let's start with how you learned that you had been selected by NASA to be part of this team. I understand it was a phone call. So can you take us back to that day? Was it a surprise? Was it expected?
Sure, yeah. So as you know, all of these missions have lots of teams on them, right? It takes a big group to launch a mission to the moon. And so one of those teams is the science team. Right. And those are the scientists who are going to decide what are the science objectives? What can we bring back? we've studied things like Apollo samples for the last 50 years. So the science team plays a critical role. So NASA had a call this past fall for proposals to join the science team. I have applied for such proposals before, never for a moon landing, but for Mars rovers and other missions. I've been applying for about a decade. I've never been selected, right? And this time, right, I got an email that said, we'll be calling the participating scientists on Monday, March 23rd. I thought, great, NASA, I'm going to check my phone that entire morning, make sure that the ringer is up loud. And I was grading some student work, and the phone rang, and it said Washington, D.C. And I just thought, this can't really be happening. And it was a dream come true. I answered, and they asked, we're calling to invite you to be a participating scientist on the first Artemis landed mission to the moon. Would you like to join the team? And of course I said yes. And I sounded very normal on the phone. But as soon as I hung up, I ran around my house and I just screamed with joy because I was so excited about it.
Oh, that's awesome.
I can only imagine what that feels like. And I think that the students that might be listening to today's podcast and just any adult listening, you remember as a child your dreams and you envision what it would feel like for that moment. But I think when dreams actually happen as an adult, it is so surreal that it's bigger than even maybe your childhood self. So let's talk a little bit about that. The many media outlets to take an interest in your story recently, one was the Tennessean. They wrote about how you had an interest in space from a very young age. And we hear this from people who dream so big, but a lot of times that dream starts when you are so small. So their article describes how, as a child, you had an interest in science fiction novels and thrived in science class. And I loved science in school. I think it begins that first intrigue and interest starts as a child. Where do you think this passion first started? When was that first little flicker when you realized you could carve out a successful career from science?
Yeah, I think the way that it often starts is with children who are curious. I was a really curious kid, which probably got me into a lot of trouble, right? But I wanted to know I had all these questions, and I always put, blades of grass in my pockets, and I was picking up rocks, and I was asking about stars. And, my parents really encouraged me. They got me a telescope at one point for Christmas. That's my favorite Christmas gift looking back when I was young. And then, I wrote a letter to NASA when I was in middle school, which thankfully they sent back, and I have it at home. My mom saved it for me.
Oh, that's amazing.
She's a great mom. And in that letter, I told them I really wanted to be a child astronaut, and they could just call me up.
Anytime,
just let me know. And they sent me back the astronaut application packet, and it said you need to do a degree in science. And here I was, early high school, and I just thought, okay, I just got to get to it. And years later, I also tell my students, though, a lot of times success is not linear, right? I had lots of setbacks. I had lots of rejection letters before I actually got that phone call. So it's okay, just as long as you don't give up. Just keep trying.
Don't you think that's one of the most important messages? My first career was in publishing, so I got a lot of rejection letters as well. And there's nothing so disheartening as seeing this important letter arrive and you don't know if it's a yes or a no, and then it's a no, and it just kind of hits you really hard. And then when you receive multiple rejections, that hope is very important. But I think that the flame starts to diminish and get a little smaller, and you're just trying real hard to keep that hope alive. And then when you get that positive response, like, yes, you're the one, this is your moment, I think you appreciate it more. If you were a one-hit wonder right out of the gate, you may not know to appreciate it until, something falls apart. So I think that rejection is good to build resilience and to share that story that you're not going to learn something right out of the gate. I think when people learn to play an instrument, it's the same thing. They want to be good right away, but it's that struggle of learning and the process that's really the most joy can come from that.
I completely agree. And I think it gives you just so much gratitude when it does come through. The recent Artemis mission, Artemis 2, that just launched and landed last week, they coined a new term. They coined the term moon joy in the science room because they were trying to express just being so filled with joy at this huge accomplishment from humanity. And so I think this is my own little bit of moon joy, right? Getting that phone call just how special it is. So.
Well, I want to go to, and you all started to talk about this a little bit, about what you want students to get from this, because you and I have spoken about your work with NASA some for just for a news release that the university did, and you always find a way to bring it back to the students and to ensure that this creates opportunities for them as well. And you've served at Tech now for nearly 15 years, so I know there are countless students who are cheering you on and looking to your example. I was thinking about that when the Facebook post went up, and I don't know if you saw. I hope you did, because just dozens of comments from some of your former students and people that were so happy for your success. But when you think of those students, what do you want them to see and learn from this?
Well, the world can be a big and scary place, and I've watched our college students, navigate that. Right, they're adults and they're figuring out how to work their way through the world. And so one thing about space exploration is I feel like it's one of those stories that unites us and gives us a lot of hope. And so for my students, the thing that I'm so excited about, and for myself too, we've never seen humans walk on the moon, right? Apollo, I've asked my parents, what was that like? What was that moment like when, it streamed on TV and they saw, humans walking around on the moon and exploring, and what a excitement that was for all of humanity. But our generation has never seen that, and my students have not seen that. And so, even with this Artemis 2 mission recently, the thing that I loved the most was listening to them talk about it, and what a unifying, hopeful moment it was for them, despite all the other things that might be happening in the world and in their personal lives, that when we really work together, when we have these big teams and we're all passionate about it, look at what we can all do. And that's the message that I try to bring to my students. And I love them, and I think a few of them might have some more negative comments they write about my courses, but otherwise we have a pretty good relationship, right? And that's it's just a real pleasure to work with them.
Oh, you obviously have a built-in fan club, and they are rooting for you. We are rooting for you. I love to see the success in making your dreams come true and contributing to this important work. Let's not discount what you're bringing to the table here. And I want to shift gears a little bit, or Jonathan would probably say reverse thrusters, and talk about your work on the Tennessee Tech Board of Trustees, where you recently completed a term as faculty representative. So in that role, you were a voting member of Tech's governing board and were part of the small group responsible for things like approving budgets, curricula, approving tenure and promotion decisions, on and on. So what was that experience like for you? What did you find most rewarding about it, or maybe most surprising?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a huge honor to serve on the board, and I was elected by the faculty, and so to represent them, I'm just always humbled at those types of opportunities. So at Tech, I'm so proud to be part of a community. I think that our students are fantastic, our staff are fantastic, our faculty, they work hard, they do incredible research, and so in serving on the board, I think the thing that I was probably most proud of, right, was leaning into some difficult conversations, talking about things like compensation, how much we get paid and how much our work is worth. And those aren't easy conversations to have. There's a lot of layers built into that. There's a lot of feelings, and we've had kind of a tough economy the last couple of years. So the opportunity to lean in and to advocate and to try to lift up and make sure that people are getting paid fairly, that was really important to me, and I appreciated the opportunity to do that. Probably right up there, second place would be developing new programs and watching those programs get approved. We've got a brand new PhD in biology that's coming online, just got approved this past March, and Tech is really out there doing awesome research, and just contributing to all of these big issues across the country.
Well, I'm looking at the clock here and was hoping that we'd have time for an extra question, and it looks like we will. So when you talk about new programs, I want to get into one of those because here recently, the Department of Earth Sciences, which I know you were the chair of Earth Sciences before you were elevated to this assistant dean role, but there is a new planetary geology degree program. And so I would imagine that's of particular interest to you. What can you tell us about that? And maybe for students who might be interested in that, what would you want them to know?
Well, I think that over the coming years, we're going to see this huge increase in space interest, right? We already saw it with Artemis 2, and Now there's more players. Back in the 60s and 70s, it was primarily NASA or different state agencies in other countries. Now we've got all of these commercial players. We've got Intuitive Machines. We've got SpaceX. And, they all need a workforce. And as we go and we, make moon missions a more consistent thing that's happening over and over again, they're going to need folks like our students to be trained up and join that. So planetary geology is a new program at Tech. That one specifically uses orbital data. So we're going to look at the Earth or look at the moon, and we're going to use orbital data to understand the history of that particular body and, where things like mining could happen or oil and gas is here on Earth. We're not going to get any oil and gas on the moon, but those types of questions can be answered with a planetary geology degree. And I'm really excited to offer that. Of course, it's a big passion of mine. And we've got our first students. I think we'll probably have our first graduate this year or next. So,
well, and I think it gets to kind of another question too, where I've read, and I think the university said that we've had over 200 alumni that have worked with NASA in some capacity. And so, perhaps that degree program would be an avenue for somebody to get into the moon mapping and things that, some of those, that work that you've been involved with, but for, and maybe going even younger for the young student out there that has an interest in this field, and might be wondering about kind of the first steps to pursue that. What would you tell them? What would be your advice?
Engage that curiosity, be curious, right? And so take those science classes in middle school and high school, and don't be afraid to ask questions, ask your teachers questions, ask your parents, because that curiosity is the root, right, of all science, including planetary science of, what is the moon made of and what's it going to be like when the astronauts walk around and they take pictures. All of those fundamentally are curiosity questions. So those are kind of the first steps. And then, of course, planetary geology at Tennessee Tech is the next step, right?
I think that's great advice. And it leads us right into my favorite part of the interview, which is our rapid fire round. So I've got a few questions, a few prompts for you, and you tell me just the first thing that comes to mind. So your favorite place on Tennessee Tech's campus?
The rock garden behind Kittrell Hall is my absolute favorite place. It used to be the porch, just so you know. We used to have all of our rocks out on the front porch of Kittrell. Do you remember? Yeah. It was the Rock Lodge. And when we renovated, we decided to move them to the back. So now we have a big rock garden. So, of course, I'm a geologist, so the rock garden is my favorite.
That is a natural response. That's the first time we've received that response to this question. It fits. It suits you.
I had a feeling it was going to be something involving Kittrell Hall. I had a feeling. Okay, the colleague most likely to make you laugh during a faculty meeting.
Dr. Peter Lee has the best jokes on campus. If you're looking for a geography class, his cultural geography class is a hoot, and you should definitely take him.
Your favorite, well, and this requires a little bit of explanation, but I know that you are very well traveled and that you've been all over the world. So your favorite international travel destination?
Well, I narrowed it down to two, but I can't do less than two, I think. So one is Italy, because it's Italy. It's just so beautiful and the food is just fantastic and you just can't go wrong. So much history there. And then as a geologist, Iceland, right? You can see basalt flows, and that's the closest we can get to what the surface of the moon probably looks like.
Oh, that one's on my bucket.
Listen at her giving a space answer with international travel.
It's on my bucket list. I want to go there. The thing you'd be doing for a career if you were not a scientist or professor?
I would love to be like a wildlife filmmaker. Yeah. So you guys know the, Blue Planet, and listening to David Attenborough narrate those wonderful, visual depictions of Earth, and it'll be a snow leopard or whatever they're chasing. And I just think that would be so fun and so cool. So in my daydreams, in my alternate life, I kind of wish I had gone that path. I think it'd be really fun.
Oh, I love it. Okay. The best thing about life in Cookeville?
That's a tough one.
Oh, this one is tough, but I have an easy answer. Meg's bread, and specifically the sourdough. It's so good. Definitely get there early and get a loaf, because that is my favorite in Cookeville.
I think I'm their best shopper. I think I deserve like a punch card, because I'd max that sucker out in 3 days. They just love me there.
Oh, I love Meg's bread. And just a pro tip for new listeners: if you are, I'm gluten free. They are great for that too. Yeah.
Yes.
So love Meg's bread.
Okay. Finally, Dr. Luna, we always end each interview on this podcast with the same question. What is one way that Tennessee Tech has impacted your life?
I really appreciate the opportunity that Tech gave me. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my history before I got to Tech. I worked in an oil company. I worked for Marathon. You might have seen the Marathon gas stations here in town and all across the South and Eastern U.S. And I was working in Houston, and I loved working at Marathon. I got to work with offshore data. I'm a geologist, so I was looking for oil and gas. But I really, really wanted an opportunity to teach. I wanted to go back and teach the next generation. I wanted to work with space data and stuff like that. So I was applying, and Tech was my first choice. But I thought, oh, man, I don't know if they'll ever take me there. I've got this industry background. Maybe they're looking for something different. And I still remember, this is probably my second favorite phone call that I've ever gotten, right? I remember when I got the phone call and they offered me the job here at Tennessee Tech. And I was so thrilled and so excited to come and start my career here, my teaching career, my academic career. And all along the way, I feel like Tech has been just so incredibly supportive. When I went to my department chair at the time, Mike Harrison, I said, I want to do some space research. He didn't say no. He said, that sounds really cool. Go for it. And, I wouldn't be where I am right now. And we certainly wouldn't have all these cool opportunities for students if I hadn't had that, that encouragement and that opportunity from Tech to begin with. So I'm filled with gratitude. That's why I'm just absolutely honored to represent Tech, honored to go to NASA, and honored to see some folks walk on the moon again.
Well, Dr. Luna, it has been our pleasure to have you as a guest today. And I guess Tennessee Tech, if they had to be the second best phone call, being second to NASA is pretty good company. So I think we're doing okay. And, the staff here were bragging on you before you even showed up for the interview. You've done multiple interviews and everybody loves you, speaks so highly of you. And they really, you lived up to the hype. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you so much for being on College Town Talk today.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
And for our listeners, if you're enjoying our show and hearing from out of this world Tennessee Tech faculty leaders like Dr. Jeannette Luna, would you do us a favor and leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get this podcast? It all helps to spread the word about the great things happening right here in Cookeville.
And we'll meet you back here again next week for more conversations with the people who make Cookeville Tennessee's college town.
College Town Talk is presented by Tennessee Tech University in partnership with the Cookeville-Putnam County Visitors Bureau. Your hosts are Jonathan Frank and Shan Stout, and original music is performed by Andrew Buckner. Visit us online at tntech.edu/collegetowntalk.